Hello, hello, it's Mark Attwood here, the Mark Attwood Show, Adventures in the Cosmic Suit. How are you on this beautiful, well, kind of beautiful day? Sort of on and off the weather. It's almost like the weather's been manipulated. Not that I'm into conspiracy theories or anything. Anyway, today is Wednesday, the 27th of March. I'm recording this, and I thought it'd be very interesting to introduce my next guest because he is going to talk about something that I think you'll find very interesting. But before I bring him on, please remember that all the links are usually below most of my videos. Please get on my email list, subscribe to my Substack, diary of a conspiracy theorist.substack.com, because that's where I'll do the writing, and Twitter // I can't speak, can I? Twitter.com/Mark Attwood, and join in with the millions of people that call me a turbo nonce, which is quite amusing. But for now, let's hang over to Enda Donellan, who's joining me today from Ireland, somewhere in Ireland. How are you, Enda?
Hello, Mark. Thanks for having me on your show.
I'd just like to point out to the viewers we did not consult about clothes before this interview.
Oh, I see that.
It's a pure coincidence.
What's going on there?
Enda, you're running a what you described to me as Ireland's most important spiritual event in a few weeks. Do you want to tell us about that first and foremost?
Yeah, well, it's the first international Breatharian conference that's been held in Ireland. I've been out to the World Breatharian Festival initially twice. I've gone down the rabbit hole and it's blown my mind. It's a myth buster. Probably the biggest myth of all is being busted. The fact that we believe that we need food and that the system has indoctrinated us into believing that we need food. I know.
Well, of course we need food. What are you talking about, you crazy man?
And you know what? Going down this rabbit hole, there's actually loads of science backing up the fact that we are light beings, the quantum discoveries, that we are condensed energy. So my dearest friend and one of my oldest friends, an Irish girl, very dear to my heart, she sold everything, went out to China and lived with a Qigong master for a few years, ended up becoming a hermit. And when I seen her 7 years ago, she said she now feels that she can live without eating or drinking, and that she was a little nervous about that, but she was very connected to the spirit world. And she went through a process herself of self-initiation, and she stopped eating and drinking. Now, not all breatharians don't eat or don't drink. Only a small minority do. But there's a lot. There's hundreds and thousands of breatharians all over the world silently not eating food. And that's been covered by a film called In the Beginning There Was Light. That was done by Peter Stounbinger, and he covers all the stories, or some of the stories, of breatharians all over the world.
Well, I have heard of this, not eating, and I have heard, I was just looking it up then, but I couldn't find it in time to make it relevant. But I remember reading about 15 years ago that there was something like 800,000 recorded Buddhist monks who had basically disappeared into their light body, and they left behind a husk of their physical matter. Have you come across that before?
Yeah, well, this is one thing my friend actually does as well. She leaves her body for days on end and comes back in. Sometimes she gets back into her body, and there's
full of squatters.
There's a few squatters there. You know, she probably, she could charge a bit of rent actually.
I was going to say she should Airbnb it.
So yeah, and this tradition is thousands of years old, if not longer. So it's beings. This is our natural potential, and in yogic terms, it's called a siddhi, where not living without the need for food is something that comes like a blessing. It's not something to be forced or to be chased after. It's something that comes naturally, emerges from our deep connection to our soul. So there was a Swami guy out in India who was under observation in Mumbai, and Al Jazeera and BBC covered it, and they had him in hospital sitting in a room, and he didn't poop, he hardly peed, and the doctors were baffled, but they didn't do an official report on it, because if they did, then that would give it credence, and they don't want to do that. So they just want to go, oh, you know what, this isn't happening, and yeah, we've observed that it is happening, but we're not going to do anything official. And that's because it's challenging, and the whole system could crumble if they start giving this credibility.
Well, we live in the era of doctors being baffled, and it's usually because they're trying to cover something up. So none of this surprises me, and I talked to you on the phone earlier about my journey with fasting, veganism, raw juicing, blood type diet, every sort of thing, which way, sideways and Sundays, and I ended up being a carnivore. But the reason for that for me is because it eliminated so many things that are actually poisonous to us, and I'm eating less and less and less. I know I don't look it, viewers, but I am eating less and less and less, and it's I've heard about obviously the Buddhist monks, but there's a famous story about a guy who's in his 70s who's just lived off sunlight for the last 50 years, and this isn't new to most of the people that watch my show. But what's interesting is that what you calling this event? Are you calling it an event or
it's a conference?
It's a conference. And can you just give me the web address so I can share that with people before I carry on yabbering?
Yeah, consciousconcert.ie.
Consciousconcert.ie, and I'll pull that up on the screen in this. Misspelled it. I've got conscious convert instead. Hang on, concert.
That could happen too.
There we go. Don't get it wrong, viewers. Consciousconcert.ie, and I'm having all sorts of trouble getting into it. There we go, and not because of any other reason that I'm completely inept at typing and talking at the same time. Yeah. So you told me that they closed down a previous version of this. Is that correct?
Yeah, my friend who's Irish, who's been on this path for 7 years without drinking and eating, she came into Ireland, and the person who was running that got a call and was told that this can't go ahead, that it's too dangerous. So it's okay to plow people full of cigarettes and alcohol and poisonous food, but a few people not eating food and fasting for a while and seeing if they can push the boundaries out and connect with their spirit, all of a sudden that's very dangerous. So
it is. It's very dangerous. That's why you don't have magic mushroom bars in every town in Ireland. You have Guinness bars, because that's good for you. Guinness is good for you. Yeah.
So yeah, it's this is the first time something like this has happened. Jazz Moheen, who is headlining it on the Sunday, she's doing the whole day. She's the grandmother of the World Breatharian movement. And she's written 42 books on the subject. 42 books. She's prolific. And she's been on this journey pretty much all her life. And she's the lady there you see on the left-hand side. And then Nicholas, who runs the World Breatharian Festival, is coming in. And then that's Nicholas there. And then I don't know who you're going to pull up next. I forget who's Marja, she's a breatharian from Switzerland who goes to bed with the chickens and wakes up with the chickens. Very simple lady, but full of light and just imbues that just gorgeous, loving, feminine energy. And she's written a book herself as well.
Amazing.
And then Peter is the man who made that documentary, and his background is in science. And he's a seeker like ourselves, and he always wants to see and find the truth. His documentary won the Cannes Film Festival when it came out, and it also topped the box office above Harry Potter that year. So it was very popular in Austria. And there, it just goes to show the ground roots desire and seeking that actually is happening, that if we were watching what's going on the telly, you wouldn't know. But there's a massive amount of people who are really searching for the truth of who they are, and to expand into their fullest potential, and daring to ask the questions.
I'm just sharing this with the viewers. Peter's film is at lightdocumentary.com. I'm going to watch that over the weekend. That looks absolutely brilliant. I've not heard of that. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. You've got a real wow. Look at all these. Yeah, this is amazing. So yeah, you've got a real class A lineup here. Who else should we talk about? Let me just pull back the website.
Because it's a social event as well. There is food being served. We've a raw foodist from Dublin who runs a market up there. She's doing all the food. It's high vibrational food. We've also got music from a man called Luis Paniagua and Marilyn Maria, who there's some heart-opening entertainment there as well. And it's about this is all about a transmission of energy rather than just information. It's about a whole experience, and that's what we've been doing for the last 10 years with Conscious Concert. We've been bringing people on experiences. It's the first time we've called this a conference, but I think the word conference kind of suits more the 2-day format that we're doing and the nature of it. So we've slightly changed the name this time, but yeah, it's going to be a meeting of expanded energies and people with very open minds who are, it's just asking that question, as you know, Mark. That's all it is. Once we ask that question, we're planting the seed in our consciousness. It may be in this lifetime, it may be in 5 lifetimes. But if we don't ask those questions about who we truly are and what is our fullest potential, then we continue on in ignorance. It's as simple as that.
I could not agree with you more. And it looks like an incredible event. And if you're in Ireland and you can make it, what are the dates, Enda?
It's the 6th and 7th of April, so it's 9 days away.
Only 9 days away. So if you can make it, go along. If I can make it, I'll go along. Not sure if I can. I got kids and all sorts going on, but if I can, I will. How did you get to this point? You've been at this for quite a long time. In fact, you messaged me in 2021 on Facebook back before I got kicked off Facebook, and it was one of those things. It's all divine timing, isn't it? This sort of thing.
Yeah, well, when at the time, if you ask questions of what was being rolled out, you were shuffled into being a right-wing extremist and fascist and all that. Mm-hmm. So what we did was because we were doing gatherings, we weren't into protesting. We were into coming together, assembling in places, PowerPoints on the land. And we created a manifesto called Sovereignty Ireland. The website was sovereignty.ie, but we've rebranded it this year to thenewway.ie. So that's how we connected. We were doing gatherings on the Hill of Tara, so we weren't into going onto streets and banging pots and so on. Not that I disagree with the efficacy of that. Our approach was to come together in a big field where the guards couldn't surround us and they wouldn't know what to do with us. You can't really pen people in a field because it makes no bloody sense. so we were aiming, we had up on 1,000 people at a couple of them during the height of the lockdown, and there was informative talks and just again people, it was a very healing experience. There's one of the videos. So we were doing some online stuff as well. We've been going every second Wednesday. We've kept it up. It was too much of a commitment to do every Wednesday, but we've still been going every second Wednesday to this day. And it's a platform where people come on a Zoom call and chat. There's a lot of stuff around sovereignty, having those conversations that we're seeing happening all over YouTube now, where people are questioning their status and or coming back to the land, coming back to standing on the soil, and coming back to being sacred beings and not slaves.
Well, it's interesting. We didn't connect them, but for me, it's been an interesting 3 years since that. Hang on, just to remove that, because I am, I spent the weekend with a Harley Street consultant, knee consultant, Ian McDermott, Dr. David Chapman, not Chapman, Cartland, and Dr. Ahmed Malik, 3 leading dissenters in the medical profession, and they quietly said to me, what's interesting is the amount of doctors that are now approaching, who were calling them idiots 3 or 4 years ago, nutters, who are now ringing them and saying, right, well, I'm not taking any more vaccines. And then they're saying to them, well, why don't you speak out about it? Well, I'm not ready to do that. And this consciousness is definitely unstoppable and rising, and everybody on the planet is in different positions and has different, some people have different missions and different roles to play. But from what I'm seeing, it's definitely, even the level of attacks has increased for me personally recently, and I see that as a really good sign that we are making massive progress. How do you feel? And I mean, you've been at it doing this for 10 years at least with the conscious event.
Yeah, well, I've been doing events longer than that. The Conscious Concert is running 10 years. My background, I've been working as an osteopath here in Slane for 23 years. You know, the whole arena of holism has been my life's journey, and understanding, you know, physiology and energy, and looking at all different modalities of healing. And it is such a, you know, we can't exclude, you know, or when we exclude spirituality from that, we're totally disconnected, and it leads to all sorts of ramifications, negative ramifications for our well-being. So this is something that is slowly being eradicated, even from osteopathy. They're trying to get rid of the philosophy from it, you know, that's happening through the regulation in Europe. And we see things that are slowly getting taken off the shelves and so on. So there is a war on our health, on our consciousness. I don't wish to use that word from a fear perspective, because that's not how I live my life. I don't live my life with wrapped up in fear, because you know, I always try and forge a path of you know, remembering that courage is part of our soul mission. You know, when we're connected to our soul, we feel that in our bones, and that we're invincible, and that when we show up and face these things head on, that we know that we have so much more power, and this is than we're led to believe. And a lot of us are experiencing that, and I've experienced that a lot during the lockdown, when I've had very difficult you know, conversations. We did some of the gatherings, the sovereignty gatherings outside Oris and Uachtaráin, the president's house. We were mainly on Tara, but we did 3 of them outside the president's house. And sure, the park rangers were there, and the detectives showed up. And it's just having a conversation when you look into somebody's eyes, and you know you're not defending anything. You're just open to truth and exploring that. You're connecting with their heart. Then they start to smile, and you start to smile, and they just walk away. And it's just, how the hell did that happen? Just 10 minutes ago, they were saying there's no way this event is going ahead. You have to get off now. And, you know, just by standing in our sovereignty and standing in our truth, and with an open heart, and not seeing anybody as the enemy as well. But you know what I mean? Because the people on the ground aren't the enemy. Yeah,
No.
there's an unseen force there which they aren't even aware, and they're asking questions themselves. And they know when we have these conversations, they're not fully convinced of what the system is doing, that they're being employed by. So there's so much, you know, with health and well-being, there's so much that the media wish not to cover, because it you know, there's so much vested interest from corporate, you know, the corporate interests. There's the business is illness, as we know, and there's not much money in people you know, just drinking juices. And well, the organic market will do a booming trade, but there, you know, there's not much business in that. So yeah, this is where we have a duty, I think, to ourselves first and foremost, to wake up, you know. And I don't mean that by, you know, I through the whole lockdown, I've never called anybody asleep because it's quite derogatory, actually, and arrogant. But I'm just in the business of me being more aware and me waking up, and not it's nobody else's business what anybody else is doing. I just have to be the truest version of myself that I can be. And if I can influence people through that, I think that's what our calling is. You know, that's what I think your calling is, doing this channel, and other people like us. We're through us changing and waking up. We're the magnetic effect of that transforms our reality.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just about finding that connection and exploring it and not being afraid of it. And it's what's interesting is how much louder it's got for me personally over the last 15 years, because it started really knocking at my door. Well, it's been knocking at my door my whole life, but it just got louder and louder and louder. And that's why this has been such a fascinating time. And it's, how do you view, out of interest, the what's going on in Ireland in particular at the moment? Because I mean, after COVID, it was like, right, now we're going to turn it up to 11 and we're going to really squeeze this country. What do you think is really going on there on a spiritual level?
Yeah, well, you mentioned the book earlier on today, which I'll have to look up, the one about the pharaohs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Ireland, land of the pharaohs. Yeah.
And you mentioned that there's within that book there's 26 levels of dark magic. You mentioned
Six. I think it's 16. I might be wrong, but it's. I know it's 8 times most other countries levels of black magic. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think we've just switched slave masters, really, and that's what's happening to. But there's a spirit in the people, and I like to see anybody who's living on this island. If you're drinking the water from this land and you've got your feet on the ground, then you're even, if you've arrived here from a different country, I think by the very nature of osmosis, you're going to become Irish very soon, and you're going to be feeling that energy. Like I remember few of my friends in the past saying when they arrived here from other countries that all of a sudden it initiated a deep healing process for them, and whatever it is, they go back to their country, but they need to come back to Ireland because it just brings them into this, the weather's crap, but they're just drawn here. And so this is where, if you're living in this island, you're navigating and you're upgrading to the energies of the island. And so I wouldn't subscribe to kind of a Irish for the Irish, because I think whoever arrives here is going to be Irish anyway. Do you know what I mean? So I think that there is now, I think behind the scenes there's a human trafficking thing happening, which is different. I think we need to be looking after people, but I think we're being manipulated, and there's
a big difference between being called somewhere and being offered no passport required, free car, free accommodation, come in, and we won't even check. There's a total massive difference there. But as you said that, you reminded me, the first time I visited Ireland, I went to Connemara and I literally couldn't leave it. It was like I had to keep pulling over the car to look back, and I was like, "What is this?" It's like such a powerful draw, and the amount of people that I've met from all over the place who feel that calling is amazing. My grandmother was from Limerick, and that's part of, I think, what it was. And I have children that are half Irish, and it is a very, very powerful. In fact, I put it in a poem a few years ago, deliberately reflecting what you just said, which is from Sligo to Estonia, the spirit of Ireland, because I wanted to point out the fact that what's been interesting, especially since COVID, is that the immigrants that had been here for 20, 30, 40 years, maybe from Eastern Europe and stuff, they were the ones who seemed to see through the con faster than a lot of average, Irish people. I know I'm generalizing, but it just seemed like that because they recognized communism when they saw it, because they came from places where they grew up in it, in Romania and places like that. So they've been really powerful kind of allies to the indigenous people of this land over the, and it's but because all that mixes up into a melting pot, it means that you have to be, you know, I'm not anti-immigration, but I am anti-forced immigration. But as soon as you say those words, you're a racist, you're a right-wing fascist. I mean, there are trolls that keep trying to close down our healing center here because apparently I'm a white supremacist, dangerous fascist, even though I'm trying to heal people and I write poetry. No, it's insane.
Mm.
Have you frozen? Have I bored you?
No, it's just great to be on your show and listen to you and to share.
It's all about sharing, and I love the fact that there's a lot of initiatives around this country, but I was drawn to this because the breatharian thing is, I think it's definitely where we're going as an evolved species as we shift dimensions. We're not. I've said for a long time. I just feel instinctively we're not even going to need food. We're not going to need money, because I remember the place that I come from, which is not this very dense, intense, crazy place that we find ourselves in at the moment. What do you what do you think people who are thinking about coming to this, what are they going to get from the experience? Because it does look like a very experiential couple of days. What can you offer them apart from a list of names of people who are going to be there? What are they going to get out of it?
What are they going to get out of it? You know, it's really there's so much. You know, we've been so conditioned to so much from such a young age, and the emotions that we have around change, that we have around unconditioning ourselves, that we have around survival. It's like the event that we've been doing, Conscious Concert, has always been each year is like, what mystic out there who's not just selling a book, but is actually walking the path, you know, who's embodying the true mystery of what it means to be human. And sometimes those mystics find it very difficult to live in this middle world, so they have to extricate themselves, you know, from the humding of life and so on, the 9 to 5, because we can't survive in a mystical world. We find it more and more unbearable to be in a 9 to 5 existence. You know, we start to feel so contracted that it can be unbearable for some people. So it's really about, and well, and having said that, in the documentary that Peter has created, In the Beginning There Was Light, there is a lot of people who are living very mundane, average, you know, what would be considered normal lives, have family and kids, and are breatharian. So it's not something also that you have to live in a cave to do or go up a mountain. This is accessible to every single one of us. And we all have, you know, like the idea of caloric theory, and we need our food, you know, and the calories in order to get energy. That's actually been debunked by science. You know, like the Gaussian, isn't it the Gaussian curve, the big bell curve? Like they show that in the middle, yeah, that's true. But the more you move out, there's more and more people who break those rules, and it slopes down. Whereas there's loads of people down here who actually don't fit in, and when they find when they don't eat food, they've more energy, and all of a sudden they're feeling more vibrant, they're feeling healthier, and they start to realize that food is actually, in a way, smothering us, yeah, smothering our energy. But if we don't do this through, like I said at the start, it's not something you force. But if we don't do it in a gradual process, which is about being whole in ourselves, then we will starve to death. You know, this is where people say, oh, well, what about the starving people in Africa? And what about, you know what I mean? What about the hunger strikers? If we take that, for example, the people who are starving in Africa, well, if you look at the religions that are in Africa, the Abrahamic faith,
Sorry, that was my
no
daughter.
problem.
My daughter just interrupted me.
So if you look at the Abrahamic faiths like Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, they're the prominent religions in Africa. They're all about telling you that you're disconnected from source, you're disconnected from God, that you must pray to something outside yourself, that you're a sinner. Yeah. So this is a belief system. If you're in a prison and you're on hunger strike, well, are you in a state of anger? Are you feeling a victim? Are you fighting? These are energies which will deplete us. These are states of mind, states of consciousness will actually deplete us rather than expand our frequencies to connect with the energy. You know, because we're not just absorbing energy like you mentioned about the sun gazers. We're not just, it's not about, because we don't have, you wouldn't want to be a sun gazer in Ireland and trying to be.
Well, you could try, but you'd be dead in a couple of days, I'd say.
But we're absorbing, like there was a man, Fritz Albert Popp, who followed, he did William Reich, they followed on studies showing about the biophotons, and how we're absorbing energy through our system, that we're accessing loads of energy. You know, this is the whole the barefoot walking movement. We're absorbing you know, these ions or whatever,
and discharging as well, which is, you know, we're not getting stuff trapped in our system.
Yeah. So, and then our breath, our skin, we're porous beings, and we're batteries. There was a study done by Jared Pollock, and he was just going in to understand the because we normally think that water has just 3 states. You've got solid, liquid, gas. But he found that water has a 4th state, which is H3O2. And it's a magnetized form of water, which actually is the water in our bodies. And he took, it's got a negative charge. And this is the water. When we drink water, it gets turned into this ionized water.
That's what this does.
Right. EC water.
Yeah, and it's amazing.
Yeah, so this is the water, the 4th state of water that they discovered, which they can actually put in, and they charge like a battery, and they could actually charge other things from this water that exists in our body. So when we look at you know, because when we were in school, we were told there's, you know, we've got electrons, neutrons, and protons. Do you know what I mean? That's what we were taught in school. But that was debunked even before we were taught it in school. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Way back. So they've already shown that we're actually magnetic energy. We're frozen energy. And what we need to do, the breatharian path, is about unfreezing our energy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thawing out our energy, because we're so caught up in ourselves. And if we thaw out our energy, all of a sudden we're accessing the light that exists in our bodies. But when we're doing habitual things and doing the stuff that is actually running our battery down, then of course we're going to be, you know, in negative thinking and all these, you know, then we're not going to be open to the idea that we can live on light, or that we are light, which science has already proven that we are. All we need to do is follow the science and trust the real science, because the real science, and this is the thing, the science that we've been given in the, you know, and that has been given the slogan "Trust the Science," actually isn't science; it's a religion.
Yep, agreed.
When you go under the hood and see what they're actually, the Trust the Science is all about, there was no actual science there. Do you know what I mean? That's why they keep on flipping and changing, and, you know, changing the goalposts all the time, because, you know, they were making it up as they go along. And if science did trust the science, we'd actually be, you know, we wouldn't have to be having this conversation, and your healing center wouldn't be under threat, and we would be able to disclose the exact location of our event, but we can't. But those who attend it and who sign up for it will get the exact location, but we have to safeguard it because the system doesn't trust the science.
Well, the system not only doesn't trust it, doesn't want you to know it.
Doesn't want you to know it. It's bizarre.
The system knows all of this.
Yes. Yes.
You know, that's the thing that people don't get. And also, I don't think it's anything to do with money either. It's all about control and feeding off of our energy, because we're electric light beings. It's plain as the nose on your face once you dig into it a little bit, or you experience. I mean, for me, I first experienced this on my first week-long fast when on day 3 I started running everywhere, and I was like, how am I running everywhere? I've not had anything to eat. There's no fuel in my body.
Yeah.
And it was extraordinary. And it was, I didn't actually want the fast to end, but it did after 7 days. And I was a real pain in the ass, actually. I got back going, that's poison, that's poison, that's poison. Nearly got divorced. I got divorced later, but it nearly happened back then. But it's
but joy, Mark, is the highest frequency.
Oh, it's incredible. Yeah.
And this is what brings, these are the energies. Joy and grace is what amplifies our light body. And when we're in fear, which the system wants us to be, and in division, that's what contracts us. So every day we have to ask, if we want to migrate to our light body and live a frequency which is aligned with our highest self, then we have to question what contracted states we are in on an ongoing basis and address that.
Well, that's perfectly put, and I could talk to you for a lot longer, but I've squeezed you in today because this thing's only a few days away, and we should come back and have a bigger, longer philosophical chat. But if you guys watching, if you can make it down to consciousconcert.ie, it's on the screen. I'll put the link below the video. You can go meet Enda. There's some amazing people there. I'm going to go and buy a load of books after this and see if I can talk to these people individually at some point in the future, because it is amazing, and it's great to be inspired, and it's great to have experiences like this. So I hope some people manage to come along as a result of this video. But it's been lovely to meet you and listen to your thoughts, and we should definitely have a deeper chat in the future if you can spare the time after the event. Come back and tell us how the event went. Actually,
love to, Mark. It's great. Thanks very much. I look forward to meeting you in person very soon. Take care.
It's my pleasure. Cheers, Enda. Take care. Bye bye.